So happy you could join us once again. We are joined, as always, by Greg Engert, Beer Director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a James Beard Award nominee. The group includes Where We Are, Church Key, Downstairs, Birch and Barley. Hope you're having a good holiday season. Happy holidays to you if you're just starting. Good to see you.
You too.
What's on tap this week?
So I guess this week it's time for a very festive beer of sorts. Some could even wonder if it actually qualifies as a beer anymore just due to its intensity. But a beer that just came out in time for the holidays. This is Samuel Adams Utopias, which is an amazing beer, very extreme beer.
And rare.
And super rare, absolutely. And what's crazy about this one is that I wasn't sure we were going to see Utopias this year, because Utopias typically comes out every other year. But Jim Koch, founder of Boston Beer Company, decided that he would kind of move it up a year so that we could have a 10th year anniversary release of Utopias. So this is, it's been 10 years since Utopias was first released, and so that's why we have this one here right now. And Utopias is cool. It comes from actually far before 10 years ago, because Jim, he started Boston Beer in 1984 with Samuel Adams Boston Lager. And then by the early 90s, like 92, 93, he was starting to experiment with aging strong beers like Triple Bock and then Millennium in bourbon oak barrels. He's kind of famously said that he was walking in like a Home Depot-esque kind of a store and, saw these once used bourbon casks kind of being used as like plant holders or something like that.
Yeah, don't put rainwater in those. Let's use them to make beer.
And as he said, and the funny thing is that, to be bourbon, it's single use. So you use your barrel and then it's done. And so they kind of flood the market as such. And that's why you actually see a lot of single malt Scotch producers using bourbon barrels as well, because there are so many of them. It's single use, one and done. So we started playing around with Triple Bock and Millennium, about 19 years ago. And what's great about Utopias is every year it's been released now for the past 10 years, every other year it's been released. It includes vintages of beer that have been aging as far back as 19 years. So there's 19-year-old beer in Utopias this year, in addition to 18, 17, 16. All sorts of different casks are utilized for the aging. And the beer itself at the base, this year's blend ended up coming out strongest ever at 29% alcohol by volume. In previous years, it's been 24, 25 or so. But this particular blend is just like all of them. The base beer is fermented only with ale yeast and multiple different kinds of ale yeast and champagne yeast. So there's no distillation going on at all. It is, in fact, just incredibly strong beer, matured for up to 19 years and blended. And he uses lots of cool different barrels, beyond just the bourbon barrel that he started with 19 years ago. Now he's got tawny port barrels from Portugal, some vintage ruby port barrels from Portugal. He's even using rum barrels from Nicaragua now. So really cool balance and blending of flavor.
So, my powers of observation are somewhat feeble at times. Then it would be safe to say, since the base is consistent, but the aged beer is of different ages, so this is not ever the same twice.
No, and it's certainly a blend. And to that point, actually, I mean, it's most noticeable this year because it's a 29% blend versus others, but it is always slightly different. And it's blended, and in this case, it's blended, and then they take the blend and finish the blend additionally in a single or multiple kinds of oak barrels. So it's pulled from all these other barrels and then placed into, in this case, I believe it's a Buffalo Trace bourbon barrels, where the blend that they've concocted gets further maturation to kind of come together, and then it's bottled as Utopias.
And you mentioned, you used the phrase strong beer. Is there a category that this fits in? Strong ale or
I mean, it's a strong ale. I mean, okay. Truthfully it is. And while it's it pales in comparison to some of the wackier, even crazier, more alcoholic beers we see from the likes of Brewdog in Scotland, which are typically freeze distilled. Basically, when you freeze beer, the water will freeze before alcohol. So if you freeze it, you can kind of slough off the ice crystals, and what's left is an even more concentrated beer. So the guys at BrewDog have done this to push past 40% alcohol by volume. This at 29% is still, according to Samuel Adams and Boston Beer, 100% fermentation, no distillation at all.
29?
29.
29.
Yeah. Sure.
You can smell it from here.
Yeah,
yes.
it's really great.
Oh, real, boy, I get raisins and walnuts in the nose.
Yeah, and just, you know, your typical kind of port sherry qualities. Great positive oxidation that's occurred in these barrels for that raisin, like you said, figgy, plum-like qualities that come through. Lots of nuttiness.
It is so good. And now, I have had this before. Sam Adams came down to WTOP one time, brought a bottle of this. It was a couple years ago, the last time it came out. We did a story on the air. You know, sometimes we do those sort of stories, and they left me the whole bottle. That's the other thing.
Generous.
This isn't $19.99. These
is
not cheap.
Very expensive.
200?
200, I think, yeah. About there. So
more on eBay.
Yeah, and even more on eBay. And the thing about them, though, is as much as they cost, they're an investment. As you know, Brennan can tell you when you taste this, this is something I've even given us a fuller pour. When we serve this, which we do, of course, at Church Key and Birch and Barley, we're serving it in 1.5 ounce snifter pours because when tasting it, it is to be consumed and sipped like a spirit or brandy, you know, something like that. So this will make it much less expensive per pour. But even as an investment for the bottle, you sip it and you drink little bits of it over time, and it'll age gracefully, of course, as spirits do. They stand up to time. So it's a great investment and truly a singular drinking experience, because as much as it shows port and sherry and bourbon notes and rum-like spice, it still is very much at its base a sort of strong doppelbock of a beer, very malty and bready and a little bit sweet. Yeah,
you're not going to sit on the couch all day watching your favorite fill-in-the-blank reruns and down in this whole bottle.
This isn't a football game.
Yeah, but for a special occasion, a birthday and anniversary, a glass is well worth the price, I think. And again, this is the second, third.
It's amazing.
Well, friend and myself, we finished off the rest of the bottle. The wife was not happy that she didn't get a sample, but it was too good. This would obviously be great before or after dinner, all by itself. Is there cheese?
I think also cheese is definitely thinking about you can learn a lot about beer and cheese pairing from wine pairings from time to time. So I think of what does port go great with. Port and blue cheese are amazing. Like port, blue cheese, and walnuts. Well, this beer has, like you said right off the rip, it has walnutty qualities to it, raisiny qualities, port-like qualities. So blue cheese across the board, and every cheese-making nation has their blue cheese that's incredible. Stilton from the Brits. You've got Gorgonzola down in Italy, and then Roquefort in France. So any of those are great. And then, stateside, we have some great blue cheeses too, like Bailey Hazen Blue, and Rogue Creamery out in Oregon specializes in a host of different blue cheeses, so it'd be great with that. And then also, I can't help but think when I just took my last whiff of this, that it's got this beautiful kind of tobacco note to it. So this is a great kind of cigar beer as well.
I'm thinking spinach salad with apple, the candied walnuts, and whatever type of blue cheese you get your hands on.
Yeah, exactly. That would be great too.
All right, well, we have a few questions, or we're going to tackle one question this time. I brought my trusty iPad this time. Questions for our Ask Greg segment. This is from Philip Raskin, who's written in a couple times before. And Philip says, can you ask Greg if he has had a chance to sample any beer from any of the new Maryland farmhouse breweries, and if so, which one is producing the best beer?
Maryland farmhouse breweries. Not sure exactly what that's referring to.
Well, then that's going to be a tough question to answer.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. There are definitely, perhaps he's referring to, there's, like Still Point Farms is a really great hop growing concern and hop farm in Maryland that's been providing some really great local hops to a number of local brewers, and I know that they're in the process, if they haven't finished already, of installing their own brew house. I've not had any of their beers if they're available, so I think that might be what he's referring to. There are lots of smaller Maryland craft brewers popping up as well, And most of these are, when available, they're available at the place itself, or limited distribution in and around Maryland and primarily in Baltimore. So they haven't quite made it down to D.C. yet, but I'm sure we'll see them soon.
All right. Well, I hope you have a good remainder of 2012. Happy holidays
Happy
to
holidays.
you. Thank you as always. If you have a question for Greg before we go, let me pass that along. The email is beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Thanks again to Greg, and everyone, please always do drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.